back to Movie and a Haunt.
Hello, this is Movie and a Haunt. My name's Paige.
I'm RJ, and welcome back to Movie and a Haunt, where we contemplate the meaning of life on a bi-weekly or whenever we decide to show up basis.
Yeah, life's been nuts. We did Hellraiser, and then we dropped off the face of the earth. And then we came back, and we're like, you know what? We need something great. And then we did Jennifer's Body. We're like, that was great. And then life happened.
And then we dropped off the face of the earth.
Yeah, and then life happened, and then we disappeared again. And now we're back. Hello.
Can you guess what's going to happen next? We're talking about Dracula.
Yeah.
I almost changed the episode, by the way. I decided not to.
Well, good.
I saw that Cocaine Bear was on Peacock, and I'm like, next movie. That'll get me to show up. I'll show up for Cocaine Bear.
Yeah, we're doing Dracula's 1931 with Bela Lugosi, Master of Horror. I'm pretty stoked.
I mean, there's been better masters of horror. I mean, have you seen that guy who plays Jason? And you're like, which one? You're like, exactly.
Right? I mean, that's a good point. You know, Bela Lugosi was already a big star, but this is like, you know, a really famous franchise that he did. You don't really know the people behind the masks for the most part. I guess because back in the day, it was a big deal. They got really big actors for a lot of these. The one for Frankenstein, Boris. They got, you know, Bela Lugosi for Dracula. Wolfman also. There was a bunch of others that it was just really big actors. You don't really know them now, right? Or no.
I mean, they tried that again in when they every time they try to reboot the monsters, which has been a thing like multiple times. There's the Wolfman Benicio del Toro one.
Oh, right.
And that one has like Anthony Hopkins. It has oh my god, from The Quiet Place.
The dude? Jim?
No. The mom.
Oh, his wife, Emily.
Correct.
Emily?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go with that. She's in it. You got Del Toro. Is it Benicio that's in it? I forgot who it plays, like all the characters. But they tried it, and then when they brought the mummy back, they were like, Tom motherfucking Cruise.
I remember seeing the trailer for that in theaters, and I was like, what is happening? Why is Tom Cruise in a quote-unquote horror movie?
And you know who Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde is?
Who?
Russell Crowe.
Oh, my God.
Oh, man, that was... If anything felt like a fever dream, if you saw like what that movie universe, like the Dark Anthology, was supposed to be, fever dream.
I can imagine.
However, before we get into the movie and everything, it's 1931. Selling people on a movie is a lot different than selling people on a movie in 2021.
Right.
When it was a lot easier to get people to go out to a movie because it was like one of the things you did back then. Now it's kind of like an option. You do streaming or you do a movie. Back then it was you go to the movies. So a big name in a trailer that's just like, look at him in the movie kind of was enough because people had nothing better to do.
Yeah, I thought the trailer was good. It's simple. It tells you what this is about. And again, you're selling the actor, of course. And it's supposed to be like, holy crap, like this is a really scary monster he's playing and you've got to see this. I don't know. I thought it was good. And I'm always a sucker for those old title cards.
Only thing I remember about that trailer, I don't remember anything about that trailer except the guy like being like, rats. I'm like, that's all I remember. If that's all I remember from this movie, you know what? That's the scene. I remember that better than like probably most movies we watched. Jennifer's Body. I listened to our episode back and I was like, oh right, that shit happened in that movie. And I was like, oh right, I don't need Akon to be reminded on like a recording basis that like, oh yeah, I forgot Akon is in one of the movies that we watched. Gross.
But I'm excited. This movie is going to be how many years old now?
It's almost 100 years.
Yeah, almost 100 years old. 90-something years. What is it? 92 years?
I was going to say, this is going to be 92 years this year.
I'm really, really excited because this is, it kicked off horror.
This is as far back as we can go without, like, going into silent films / like the original Frankenstein.
Right. So, you ready to go into it?
Yeah, why not?
Let's sink our teeth in.
Don't do that. All right, we are back. We just watched the movie, but we didn't. We watched it maybe like 2 hours ago.
Yeah. Again, life.
However, I will acknowledge, this is one of those movies where I was kind of happier we got to sit on it after watching it rather than coming right into the episode because here's the thing. We struggle to have a reactionary podcast when the movie is just good. Because it just turns into a scream. We have a hard time reacting, so usually the movies that are just good, we need to sit on, like Texas Chainsaw. You need to kind of sit on to appreciate it and be like, I can point this out, I can point that out. When we get very reactionary, it turns into like a scream episode, which isn't bad. It's not a bad episode. It's just, you can tell we're kind of looking for stuff to talk about on the fly. It's by no means our worst episode. If you want to know what our worst episode is, I implore you to go and listen to episode, I don't know, Halloween Trilogy. That one's not good.
No. But yeah, you're right. We do have an issue. Well, I wouldn't even say an issue. Just describing the movie in a way where if we make fun of the movie or have like a jokey time, it's a fun episode. But like straight up, this movie was good. It was really good.
This movie, so I was like, okay, so what do I gotta do now? I gotta look up some stuff about the movie because maybe there's just a few talking points about the movie. Now, the most interesting one I found was how much they bought the rights to own Dracula for.
And it's interesting because in the beginning, in the title cards, it says that it's based off a play. And you could tell, obviously, it's a 1931 film. What do? They go to plays. And this is very theatrical in a theater sense. The sets are big. The acting is dramatic. The lighting is dramatic. But how much did they pay for it?
So what had happened was, so there was another movie before this called Nosferatu.
Mm-hmm.
It got sued.
Nosferatu got sued?
By the wife of, I guess the man who wrote it, like his wife.
Okay.
He passed away, is what I'm figuring. They won because, no shit, you based your entire thing and didn't get the rights from the people who owned it. And it basically, it ordered everything to be destroyed. Like, that movie was like, it didn't see the light of day. Universal went to them and bought the rights flat out. Like, they had perpetual rights for $40K.
$40K in 1930.
Yeah, $40K in 1930. Now, it paid off for them because they're now getting a section in their own theme park.
Yeah. How much do you think $40K is nowadays?
A lot. I don't know. I don't think it's $1 million quite so, but I think it's probably in the hundreds.
For sure.
This movie was made for $340K.
Wow.
It was noted as a giant risk.
You can see it though. You can see the money really went into it.
But that was kind of the most interesting. I think it's looking at, what, like, the risk they took and then the payoff that followed over the next few years.
Okay, real quick.
You have a shocked look on your face?
Yes. $1 in 1930 is worth $18.07 today.
Okay, so take 40 and times it by 18 more or less, and then that's...
So they bought it for $40,000?
Yeah. So times it by 18. So it's like around probably $600K.
Yeah, a little bit over that.
720K.
$720K.
I mean, for buying rights for stuff today, that's still kind of cheap. Like if you got the rights to something for $720K today, I feel like businesses would be like, the company would be like, oh, we made great on this one.
But think about it, it's after the Depression, right? Like kind of just after the Depression. So a studio putting that money to the rights and then putting money into a movie that they did absolutely could have bankrupted them.
And this is the first one.
Right. Yeah, there was a bunch.
Yeah, well, because Frankenstein didn't come till after this.
Mm-hmm.
It came a few months after, but this and Frankenstein were the same year. Now, like I said, I think this is just an interesting... The context of this is just because, as someone who loves horror, and I feel like maybe movie monsters, while they weren't the first movies I've watched... Whenever you would go to like a Universal theme park, you would like the House of Horrors, Universal's House of Horrors, back when it was still around in Florida, and I know it's still in. I believe it's either that or it got turned into the Walking Dead experience in California. But what I think a lot of people don't remember, or like if you weren't paying attention to horror at the time, you don't see it. For how big they were, and then they are now. Like I like, you know, they're getting their own section of a theme park. If you go to Halloween Horror Nights, every year there's a house currently themed off them. You wouldn't figure that, you know, Universal for like it felt like 30 years swept them under the rug. Like, they were kind of just like the redheaded stepchildren. They have like a little restaurant in the park, but it's like a quick service restaurant. They really chose to forget about them. And then it wasn't until I think like 2019 or 2020 where they brought them out for a little bit, and they made so much fucking money from merchandise on them that they've reinvested in them, but it was just because they got so much money through merch.
And one quick thing, I did misspeak. The Great Depression just started, by the way, because it's from 1929 to about 39-ish. So this was during the Great Depression. So it's even more astounding that they spent that much money. And you're right. I never really saw any merch for the original, you know, Universal monsters. And I guess maybe because this was probably coming up on its, you know, big anniversary, they were like, okay, let's do a little anniversary thing at the park, let's do some merch. And people were like, gimme, because they never sell shit.
And if they do, because I think the one good thing they did is if they do, they usually sell the core four, is what I would call them. It's Wolfman, Frankenstein, Mummy, and Dracula. Over the last few years, they've really went in. They brought the Creature of the Black Lagoon to do some more merch.
One of
they
my
have
favorites.
the Bride of Frankenstein to do some merch. They have the Invisible Man they brought back. So it feels like they're all allowed to kind of be noticed now. And the fact that, you know, when Universal's building a new park, and they're looking at like who gets a section of this new park, and they go, oh, well, they're going to get like a ride. Like, think about that. Like, they went from quick service table to a ride.
No, that's a huge leap. That's a huge leap.
And I think it's just because, A, merchandise, B, Halloween Horror Nights, people enjoyed them, and I think they would bring them around for like 1 year. They have a great house, and then they would leave for like 5 years. Now they're, I think it's like 2019. Like, they get a yearly crossover house.
I mean,
that's what I'd say.
For example, you've went for the past couple of years, and I have a glass that I have 2 or 3 glasses that have all of the characters on them. Like,
you have the one with the Mummy and the Wolfman and the...
Yeah, I have 2 of them. And they're awesome. They're classics. Horror fans are going to love these characters no matter what.
Yeah, so it's good to see them back, especially because there's been many times where they tried to bring them back. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, the 2010 Wolfman movie that ended up flopping.
Yeah.
I went back and watched it. It's not bad. It's just kind of boring. But I like Gothic, so I can look past kind of the boring. But there's stuff. Oh, by the way, the guy who did Wolfman also did the Captain America, the first Avenger. So like,
interesting.
Yeah. And you kind of see it a little bit. It's kind of like trickled in there. You see it. But, this movie is very impressive because nothing 1930s when you watch it can come across just super campy. And I mean like super campy, like to the point where you can't really overlook it. Here, it was like there was maybe a couple of characters that was a little campy, but they were very minimal side characters.
Or they were supposed to add laughter.
Exactly.
The maid Briggs, and the asylum worker guy.
Yes, was the
yeah.
Yeah. Because I was like, the asylum worker guy is the one that was kind of the most campy, but at the same time, he's supposed to be the dunce.
Right.
So you don't, it doesn't offend you because you're like, okay, well, he's the dunce. No shit that's going to happen. Now, I think the most interesting thing was Lugosi wanted to be Dracula in the movie so bad, and like Universal didn't really want him to be it. Stage actors. So he took $500 a day.
Are you kidding me?
I believe the entire movie, or it was $500 a week. I forgot which one it is, but he made like $3,500.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, which is very interesting that they didn't want a stage actor, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting because they say based off the play. Wouldn't you think you would want a theater actor?
True. I think it maybe also is Lugosi didn't speak English. He had to get taught how to speak his lines, and then he would just get taught the diction of his lines. I also, while you were like gone and I was over here, I was just like, I was looking up and I saw the whole thing between like him and Boris Karloff, where they were, false. There was a 1999 or like 1998 movie that was like they hated each other, and it wasn't really that. It was just Lugosi was like jealous of him. Like it was just like professional jealousy. He didn't hate him, but it was just. I think if you think about, Bela Lugosi, you go Dracula, like
immediately.
That's it for him. Boris Karloff. Yeah, you go Frankenstein, but you can offshoot. He had so much success post Frankenstein. Lugosi kind of just had Dracula, and then he would just beat villains. He wasn't really allowed to really do breakouts.
Yeah, he got completely typecasted.
Yeah. And he literally said after this movie came out, he didn't want to be Dracula anymore out of fear of typecasting, and then...
Look what happened.
Yeah. So it's a great thing, because his name's remembered. And so many people, and like so many movies, I think that's the reason why this is a harder movie to talk about, because if you listen to any movie that we've praised the lighting or we've praised the camera work, they literally did a direct one-from-one from a Dracula or from a Frankenstein. So it's like, yeah, we already like it because we've said it 100 times over the course of how many episodes.
Exactly. I mean, one of the best things about this, and it's extremely impressive, how modern the camera work felt with what they had at that time. The camera work felt extremely modern. The lighting was out of this world. The dramatization of his eyes are so memorable that, like you said, so many movies, without it being horror or not, any genre, when they're doing a very dramatic scene and they add that, what do you think of? You think of Dracula,
That's why with this movie, I was like, oh, we could do this whole thing where we go through the plot. Then I was like, I'd rather just be a movie discussion, which I think is probably smarter for movies that are just good because it allows you to kind of just talk about it in a broader sense. And then you can focus on the parts you want to focus on. But for like this movie, look at this, we've been 13 minutes and it's just been talking about how we got here.
Yeah.
Like when the movie starts up. Now, I will acknowledge there's some things I remember very well about this movie, and then there's some things that kind of fade away. The one thing I remember is, like, this movie's use of rodents.
Yes.
There's a lot of rodents in this movie. There's a possum that's adorable. There's, like, a few armadillos. There's spiders. I know we get the mentioning of rats, but did we ever see a rat?
We heard rats. I don't remember seeing rats. I don't think I saw them. They could have been too, I don't know about that time. Maybe you just can't put them on camera. You know?
Yeah.
It could be. I'm not
and
sure.
then, are bats considered rodents? I forget that.
They're mammals.
Mammals, okay.
Pretty sure.
I feel like people put them in there.
I feel really fucking stupid right now. I'm pretty sure they're mammals. They're like the only flying mammals.
Say, if you went, what's the one thing that was like hokey? It was the bat in the window. The bat in the window was a very hokey thing, but I
loved it.
It was endearing. I think the reason why it was funny, it wasn't the bat in the window. It was the silence.
Yes.
Of when the bat's flapping.
Even if we had some sort of Foley of like, even just like, wow, 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 wow. Just something. Someone in a
or just those sounds of the outside.
Yeah.
Just something that wasn't complete silence.
Also, bats are mammals. I looked it up. I was right. But it was charming. I think every time I saw the bat, I was like, this is so silly, but I love it. It's extremely charming.
Now, the one thing, and I mentioned this when we were watching it, because we asked about, like, when it comes to Renfield, why is, like, we both asked, like, why the fuck is he here? Like, what made him go to this house? Like, how did Dracula, like, get into contact with him? Why is he going to him? What's this whole thing? And then we both kind of acknowledged, it's kind of refreshing to just get thrown into it.
Yes, we're not...
Where you...
Yeah, there's no explanation. They were just like, oh, okay, we're in the middle of a story, and then, hey, you get to see some of it, you know?
And that's how I felt with most of this movie. It didn't hold your hand. It expected you to be smart enough to, yes, ask the question about why the hell did we get here? But then also they were like, we expect you to pay attention enough for that one little line that explains why we're here. You're going to hear it.
Right. And
that was the whole thing, was that he just was selling an estate, I believe? Or was like selling some sort of land to Dracula?
So the land that he goes to in London is what he was selling him. So when he brought over the deed and everything, he's like, perfect. I don't need this fucker anymore. I'm going to make him my little slave. And that's what he does.
Now, when this movie starts, God, that carriage was... the carriage was very memorable because the carriage was so shaky.
But I feel like it's extremely realistic.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's how it was. And I'm like, immediately when I saw that, I'm like, I'd be vomiting all over the place. I'm just going to fucking walk up this mountain. Like, it's the best course of action for me.
And then Renfield's like, I have to meet Dracula. And then the people, I guess, who are like this townsfolk of this like small town they got to are like, oh shit, like they're werewolves and vampires. And I didn't know you had a choice to be either or. I thought you were like vampire, bat, werewolf, wolf. I didn't know they had a choice.
Well, vampires can turn into either a wolf or a bat, whichever they prefer. But Van Helsing says that they usually do the bats, but they can turn into wolves, like the animal itself. That. Yeah, mm-hmm.
I just thought you were de facto into a bat.
No. Mm-mm.
So that was like new to me, and I think even me in the movie, I got confused. I was like, wait.
Yeah,
what?
It's pretty
the
cool.
Hell, they're wolves. I think it's because Wolfman follows, and I'm like, so it basically defunks Wolfman at this point because he just turns into a wolf. And yeah, I get it. He's cursed and shit, and like
right.
But some can say Renfield is cursed.
I think he is. I think there's certain things. I mean, maybe in the book, I'm really upset at myself that I've never sat down and read Dracula. I know I probably should, but it's probably a thing where the women turn into vampiric, beings, of course, because that's sexy. And of course it's because he's biting a woman's neck and stuff like that. But when he bites a man's neck, not very sexy back in when this book was made, and also in the 1930s. So he became his de facto Igor from Frankenstein.
Yeah. Now, I will say, once you start the movie, it's a little like, okay, it's a little campy, but I think it's because they have like all the campy characters kind of there in the beginning. And then once you get to, which I think is actually, it's a very impressive, which like back then it probably wasn't impressive. It made sense. But in today's world, if you were to reveal Dracula, it would be like 79 stairs glistened in gold and rubies and sapphires. The moon shines beautifully, reflecting and illuminating the room. The perfectly bejeweled with pearls casket opens up and out rises Dracula. And Dracula in this movie is just us getting out of bed.
100%. So I'm like, okay, so we're in a nasty, disgusting basement in this castle, right? I'm like, he's in with the possum, with the cobwebs and the spiders that were so fake, but I fucking love those spiders. And he's in a regular wooden coffin. Nothing extravagant, like you said. And then he's just like, opens it and crawls out. We don't even see him crawl out. We just see his hand, and then we see the women, like the other coffins. And then we come back and like, poof, he's out. Looking fabulous.
Yeah. He's like, no, you watch them get out. I just am.
Because trying to get out of the coffin in no way, shape, or form will ever be, beautiful.
It's not sexy.
Yeah.
It's not easy on the knees, even for Dracula. But even the room is very... Do you know when there were times where you're like, I like black and white, but I wish I could see this room in color? This was one of those times where I kind of wish, because I feel like the color would have made this a lot more gritty than it already looks.
Yes.
Because literally, it's just stone pillars and like stone arches and dirt. And then some wooden caskets, not even like tastefully laid around. They're just kind of placed.
Yeah, they're just thrown in there.
Yeah.
I also just real quick want to say, because we're getting before this when Renfield is getting here, and we're getting external views of the mountain and of the hillside that the castle's on and the castle itself. Gorgeous. Those backgrounds were beautiful. Even now,
they were. I think the only reason why I forget them is so quickly after you go inside the castle, and it like kind of overshadows everything, because that castle is
grand,
impressive to look at.
Yeah.
Even in black and white.
Oh, 100%. Just as a comparison, I wish we did it more now, but of course we don't, because we have CGI, and the people who do these are not unionized, so we can use them more often. But the beauty of having painted backgrounds, nothing compares to that. And it really showed here. Just like if you were watching Wizard of Oz. I remember as a kid, when I used to see that, I'd be like, oh my God, look at that. That's amazing. And then I grew up and I'm like, oh crap, that's painted. I can't believe it.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I remember about this movie is our first view of a bat, which is probably the funniest view of a bat.
It was fantastic.
Renfield gets... Basically, the dude drops Renfield off, and instead of dropping Renfield off, he just stops the horse, chucks his bag, and he's like, I'm the fuck out of this place.
I think that's the smartest character in this entire movie.
He's the one that makes it to the end.
Oh, yeah. He's the final girl.
Renfield gets in, and, like, Dracula's like, I'm not talking to you. Just give me your shit. And I will say, if you thought the cart ride up was bumpy, the cart ride up to Dracula's castle is even worse, because this dude is bouncing
and he's
around.
Booking it, like, because Dracula's like, okay, we got limited time here, okay, we have to, until the sun comes up, I have limited time to get this shit done.
And he's like, hey, what's going on? And all you see are the two horses, and then like a bat in front of the two horses is flapping, and the horses are just like, yeah, this is a regular occurrence.
Yeah, this is a normal Tuesday for us. Like, the Count loves to do this. He pretends to be human at the point. And he rides. It's fine. We're used to it. We're not scared at all.
And then we get to the house. We see it. It's gorgeous. It has a giant fucking cobweb just at the kind of like the midpoint of the stairs.
Yeah, the entrance.
Also, can we just talk? Because we'll get to it at the end. But this movie has a thing for extra staircases. Like, every staircase in this movie is extra.
Yeah. And enormous. Like, those stairs were enormous. I remember seeing the set and I was like, holy crap, how big is this? It was very grand. You felt like you were in a castle, which was awesome.
Yeah. Basically, long story short, which I think this is the one thing where I had to learn the rules as we went along. Renfield pricks his finger on a paperclip as they're setting up their travels to get to London. Dracula's like, "Is that blood I see?" I like blood.
I love it.
And then a cross pops out, and he like fades away.
Oh, because one of the village women gave it to him as protection.
Yes. Now I'm like, why didn't you give him Wolfsbane?
Yeah, like, right? But it seems to be, as we go along, Wolfsbane is a deterrent, but the cross is like the main one. Like, it is they will not come near you if you have a cross.
But I think that was the thing, was in order for him to kill him. So the thing I learned is it that you have it on you, or do they have to see the cross to run away?
They have to see it. At least
got it. For
visual purposes, it seems like that Dracula has to see the cross because we see the cross and then we see them react to it. That could be it, but I'm not entirely sure.
Either way, we jump, like, we don't jump cut, we title card cut.
Oh, and then his wives come in because he has multiple wives, and they were gonna like, because he gave him wine. He gave Renfield wine, and then he passed out, and then Dracula comes in this beautiful area on the balcony, and then like a lot of smoke and fog come in, which is really nice. Again, the setting and the stage and everything, the environment, really, really, really well done. And he makes Renfield.
But they get to the boat, and Renfield's like, I have to give credit to all the bystanders in this movie, because all the bystanders' reaction are accurate.
Absolutely.
Because Renfield kills everybody on the boat.
Yes, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because he says at the end of the movie, I can't die with all those people I just killed lies on my conscience.
Right, okay.
So, like, it's basically confirmed he killed the people on the boat at
right.
least. Anything after, he can't kill anything after. He was in the asylum.
And I just want to say at this point, and just to give him credit for the rest of the movie, Dwight Fryer, which is Renfield, amazing acting here.
He did a great job, especially because this could have went so campy so quick.
Absolutely.
Like, this could have been hard to watch campy.
Absolutely. When I saw him on the boat, I was like, is this the same guy? This is the same character, right? And then he just progresses as he goes along to just even more insane. And the way he acts and everything, his eyes. Because I know back then in the theater, you have to accentuate your features so you can get it on camera. But I thought he did a great job.
It was mostly eye acting for him.
Yeah.
His eyes are what really sold you, because, they hear someone moaning and they open the door and they're like, he's insane. Call the asylum. And I'm like, you know what? These guys are smart. All the bystanders in this movie are the final girls.
Oh, you know what's hilarious? I'm just looking up Dwight, and it says that he was Fritz in Frankenstein. So he's known, obviously, for portraying crazy characters.
Yes.
Very cool.
But he goes to an asylum, and this is where when I go like, oh, this movie's just good, this movie does have one big pitfall, but the problem is the one big pitfall kinda can get told in one sentence, and then we can just like lay out examples of that one big pitfall. This movie has one big pitfall of things getting dropped or things getting slowed to a standstill without warning. This is where it happens until we get to where Lucy is, like where he just like randomly kills a person on the street.
Yeah, I think it's also, it may have been in the books. I'm not sure. But it could just to be like, he's a really bad guy. Like, he'll just go up to innocent young women and, kill them on the street in the middle of the neighborhood, and he'll get away with it. Woo,
And I think more importantly, because I remember even your reaction, because you had a verbal reaction, was the ending.
Yeah.
It just kind of it ended.
Yeah, just cut. That's it. We're done.
Yep. And the one thing I remember about the end is the end in the bottom right corner. It just goes, "It's a universal picture."
It's like, yes.
Like, you're right.
Yes, it was.
But I think that's a good example of you're not getting told a full story. You're getting false. You're not getting told a full like person's story. You're kind of just getting told some events that happened throughout their lives. And it would make sense that, you know, they get saved and then they just kind of leave. That is a natural thing if life continues on once a movie ends. Most of the time, with the way movies go, it acts as though life stops the minute the camera hits cut.
Yep.
There's so many movies that do that.
And
there's
that's what I hate about movies, especially modern movies, because that's all we fucking have now, right? We don't have this, you know, we get thrown into a story and then, you know, life continues. Those are my favorites because it's nice to see that these characters exist before and after what you see.
Especially when, well, outside of, I guess I bet Lugosi probably came back for for anything that Dracula would appear in, but these characters don't come back.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of just acknowledge, like, the world still exists, but these characters kind of move on with their life. Like, we constantly fall into this, and it was one of my favorite movies. I love Scream, but Scream does this. They fall into this pit of, it's always one person that this has to happen to. Like, it can't just continue on. It always has to circle back to Sydney, or it has to circle back to like any of the newer characters. It can't just be new cast. It can't be that the killer's just doing something new. And like even with Saw's whole thing was, even when he was gone and dead, and they brought him, and like they did a movie years later, and they was confirmed he was dead. These people still had weird connections with a dead guy,
Right.
and it's like you could just have persons like, you know, kind of heard about it and they went with it, or it wasn't even a John Kramer thing. It was just just a person being a person doing getting revenge. I like that it was just, these were the characters of this story. They didn't get pulled into every time Dracula had to come back because Dracula had like a vendetta out against them.
Right. I think another great example of a movie and a movie franchise that you have the same main character, right? Or either the protagonist, or in Dracula's case, the villain, would be the Clint Eastwood movies, A Fistful of Dollars, A Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. You travel with the man with no name, and you get that story, and then he goes off, and then you're like, okay, well, his life is going to continue. Some of the characters' lives continue, or they die. But I think that kind of, to me, is what makes that trilogy very special, because, like you said, these characters exist before and after, and you just get a glimpse of an event that happened in their lives, and we don't get that anymore.
Yeah. I guess the closest, I know, like, when we watched the movie like Friday, they kind of switched characters a lot. But every now and again, you'd get a character in for like 2 or 3 movies.
Yeah.
You get like that one character that kind of got brought in, but it does happen. It's just as time has gone on, it's gotten more and more rare to where it's like the franchise needs to be built behind certain things, and it's not just the killer anymore. It's kind of, or like the antagonist. It's also around, it has to be based around this one person's life who's a living hell, because this thing always will come back to get her. And it's like, unless this thing's attached to her physically, or him physically, or just them physically, it's weird when it always just circles back to that person.
Right.
It's an odd thing.
Right. Like, a good example of that would be the Final Destination movies, especially in the beginning. It was attached to them, or at least because it was a supernatural being. But, I mean,
or
even Scream, it's one quote-unquote killer, but it's not one killer. It's just this person keeps getting targeted, and that fucking sucks.
Well, yeah, the joke is, I heard Billy Loomis put on a ghost face mask and try to kill Sidney Prescott, so I put on a ghost face mask and try to kill Sidney Prescott.
Exactly.
Or it's, see, now you can make a case for Scream, and I think the case kind of trickles away the more and more as time goes on.
Especially in the new run of it.
Yeah. In the originals, at least the first 3, you can pull the whole, your mom ruined my life. So and you're kind of like the second best. So I guess I have to go after you. Because every motive in the first 3 Scream movies were about the mom.
Right.
It was just like, your mom slept with my dad, with my husband, and he left us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, the last one's like, I'm her illegitimate son. It's like, oh my God, I get it. Her mom slept around. We get it.
She lived a life, okay?
She made choices. We understand. But what movie was I? If I can remember it, I'll circle back to what I was going to mention about attached, like things being attached to people. Oh, there it is. When I said it, the new trailer came out recently, but the new Insidious movie.
Oh,
where
yes.
It's the original cast coming back. They're all it's 10 years later. Hello, Insidious is 10 years old now.
Shut up.
But like that, but again, like that's something that makes sense because that scenario that when that happened was attached to that family, and this demon that they're bringing back was attached specifically to one guy.
Right.
Like it latched onto a single person. So yeah, this all makes sense. Dracula's not like, oh, I want, oh God, what was her name? Mina. I want Mina. He was just like, I mean, like, I can use another wife, I guess.
Yeah, this one's
Come
pretty.
on over.
And her friend Lucy.
Who's just dead.
Hey, did you know our love, Katie McGraw, and she was in the Dracula show, and she played Lucy.
So in the show, did you see it?
Yeah, here and there.
Is Lucy dead in the show as well, or does Lucy become a wife?
Lucy does die. Spoiler alert. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I think it's just because in this movie, there's so many points where I'm like, okay, so where do the rules do and don't apply? Like, at what point do they stop applying it and the person's just allowed to kind of die?
I think, to me, it seems like he makes that choice. Dracula himself. Like, maybe he exchanges some amount of blood between them, and maybe he just sucks them dry when he wants to kill them, type of thing. Yeah.
Regardless, we get a whole thing. We get introduced to our characters. That night, Lucy gets killed. Like, they go from the theater to Lucy dying.
Yeah, Lucy, he goes and does his little thing with Lucy, but then she becomes one of his wives or whatnot, and she's haunting children with chocolate. It's terrifying.
Yeah. And then, so I will say, there's like, this happens very soon after. By the way, the entire time this is happening, Renfield is in an asylum.
Yeah, this poor guy.
He's just kind of there. But as this is going on, we get to this point where we get introduced to Van Helsing, who's not like a hunter. He's just like
a scientist. He's just a
dude.
scientist.
He's just a scientist with some funky glasses.
And he believes in the supernatural. That's all.
But what ended up happening was there was this one scene later in the movie where Dracula shows up and Wolfenstein notices that the reflection's not showing.
Oh, Van Helsing? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was fucking cool.
That was cool. I think the reveal was even better because most of the time you would wait for Dracula to leave and then they'd be like, his reflection wasn't there. And they're like, I don't believe you. And then you have to like get him caught again. This one was like, hey, before you leave, wapow! And Dracula was like, no.
You figured it out.
Let me jump off this windowsill.
But I was really impressed with that. The camera work for that was very well done. Obviously, they had the actors act the scene multiple times.
Oh,
of course. But it was really, really well done. I was like, whoa, oh my god, he's not in the mirror. I'm really impressed.
It's a cool reveal because it's not something that they build up to. It just kind of happens.
Yeah.
Like, it's just kind of noticed in the heat of a situation.
Yeah,
And, like,
and I think it's supposed to get the audience like, whoa, he's not in the mirror. Oh my god, that is amazing. And also the editing work of putting his voice over it while, he's there. Very well done back from 1931.
Oh, yeah. And then he's like, well, I'm going to get you and all and your dog too. And then oh, no. Before then, I'm guessing he bit Mina.
Yes.
I think it was like the night before he bit Mina.
Yes, he bit Mina because he's coming back. Because she's having the nightmares of events and everything like that. So he's coming back to check on her well-being.
And then her husband's like, or her fiance, he's like, no one's telling me what to do. You're coming with me and we're getting out of here. And her dad's like, actually, I'm telling her what to do. Because I supersede you, bitch.
And then Val Helsing's like, actually, I supersede all of you. Because I'm a scientist.
Get me some leaves. I need my magic leaves.
Get me the wolf's bane.
And then they like put it at the doors and they tie it around her waist. And it's just like,
they make
wow.
her wear like a crown or whatever. Yeah.
So at what point does garlic become a thing? Like where people like associate garlic with vampires?
That's a very good question. That's probably, it might be in these line of movies, but maybe down the line. Because we also didn't get silver bullets.
We didn't get silver bullets.
They didn't even.
But also, we didn't
silver.
get vampire. We also didn't get Van Helsing, the vampire hunter. We got Van Helsing, the scientist.
Right. Well, that's how we started.
Solving things with real solutions.
Yeah. He has a line where, because he's talking to other people or doctors or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, vampires. That's of superstition." And then he says a line somewhere along the lines of like, yesterday's fantasies become science of today. And I thought that was a really really cool line.
And then, so this was one of the few times where I thought we had much more time than we ended up actually having towards the end of the movie, because you were like, oh, the movie must be almost over. Then I looked at the time and I was like, oh shit, it must be. I feel like there's still so much we have to wrap up before. It feels like we've been in this living room for an hour.
Yeah.
And I feel like we have to, find where Dracula is. We gotta do all this stuff still. And we have 20 minutes. Like how are you gonna close this in 20 minutes? And I'll acknowledge it. The movie had really good setup. I wasn't a fan of how quick the payoff was. But I think it's because, I'm trained to think of big payoff. Rather than, you're like, oh, why wouldn't he wake up while he's sleeping? It's like, because he's sleeping. I had to kind of take some time, look at all my critiques, and be like, okay, here's the reason why they probably did it, though.
Right.
Now, I do think the weirdest one, and I thought it was a little goofy, was where he runs away with Mina and they can't get the door open. I'm like, he just shut that door. He doesn't have enough time to lock it, guys. Especially with, the way you're going at it, that seems like a lock I would have to spend at least a few seconds getting into place. Mm-hmm. Either way, they chase after... Well, false. Renfield escapes from the asylum once again.
He's been doing
and makes
this.
it to the house again. The first time he does his whole rats monologue that I mentioned from the trailer. The second time, it's so... How do I put this? He's like, I didn't betray you, master. And I'm like, you very audibly betrayed him probably 20 minutes ago.
And that's not even the first time. Every single time he's talked to other characters, he's basically like, you won't believe this. You guys got to be prepared. This guy's going to come and, he's going to make her have these horrible nightmares and do something terrible to Mina. Guess what? That happened. He's like, oh man, this is gonna happen and you guys gotta be prepared. He's a fucking rat. He loves to eat rats because he is a rat.
I just found it funny because he's like, I didn't betray you. And I'm like,
you
dude,
fucking did. He gave you like 3 chances too.
You may be right. In your head, you maybe don't think you're betraying him because you're just kind of just, you're saying shit. But like, you have given them so much stuff to use.
Oh, yeah.
So in his head, he's probably like, no, I'm just telling them how things are. That's not betraying. And it's like, you're right, but you're giving them a leg up. Dracula doesn't deal with that shit.
Exactly. And then Dracula is fucking done with him. He's like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Chris Redfield leads him.
Yeah.
He literally leads them to the place.
Yeah. And he's like, all right, we're fucking done. And he basically, I think he probably sucks the blood out of him. And then Renfield falls down
Throws him downstairs. Now, I will say, Renfield beelined up those stairs, though. Stamina.
The stamina of this man. And him...
Especially because that had multiple takes.
Yeah. And him falling looked very painful.
I kind of figured, because there was probably a crash pad where he finally landed.
There is, but still. 1931.
Yeah. I mean, I've fallen down a few steps before. It's not awful. It's usually the final hit that will screw you up. Like, if you, it only hurts if you roll down the stairs and you're kind of keeping body contact with the stairs the entire time. It may be a little uncomfortable, but it's kind of like when someone gives you too tight of a hug. It's when you catch air and then, like, land on the stair.
Gotcha.
That's where it jacks you up. And I don't know what they were like back then, but I don't know if they were, made of a different, like, are they made of padding? Are they made of something that's softer to fall down on? Just because I feel, but the thing was there was noise.
Right.
And when Dracula talks, there's audible echo, so it seems like they were getting the natural noise of that scene. Either way, Renfield's just like, I can't live with this. I can't die. I can't. And then he dies.
Yeah, he's like, torture me, do anything, but I don't want to die because I have these lives on my conscience.
And I'm like, dude, you're gonna have one on your conscience, but you die anyway.
What are you gonna do?
And then Dracula and his wives and his possum and his armadillos and his rats and his flies and his spiders all go to sleep. And I guess it's confirmed. He didn't have enough time to put Mina under the trance, like, fully.
Right.
Like, he couldn't turn her into a vampire. So he kind of was just like, sit in this corner until nightfall. Yeah. I'll come back.
Because my understanding with Dracula here is his energy depletes when the sun comes up. So he just becomes comatose. That's why he didn't wake up until he got fucking stabbed through the chest.
And yeah, then, which I think is kind of cool because they get to the cellar and all that stuff. And Van Helsing's just like, also the reason why I keep ranking is because since, video game guy, I keep thinking Wolfenstein. I'm like, his name's not fucking Wolfenstein. It's Van Helsing. Calm your titties. But Van Helsing's like, okay, you find me something to slam it in with, I'm gonna break his coffin.
Yeah, I'm gonna
stab him with his coffin.
Because when he said that, I was like, what stake do you have? And then we hear noise off camera, and I'm like, oh shit, he's using his coffin. That's fucking badass.
But I was also just like, that's a very sharp piece that you've, like, managed to undo. That's, like, that's impressive.
The magic of movies.
The magic of science. You hit it at a certain point. He stabs him. And Dracula dies.
Yeah, you hear it off screen.
Yeah. Well, everything's off screen.
Yeah, because you can't put that shit on screen.
No.
Even the biting.
It's 1931.
Even the biting. He goes in for it, and then it fades to black.
Well, do you know they cut a kiss between Dracula and Mina out of the movie, right?
Makes sense. I was actually very impressed that we got that silhouette of the captain of the ship that they arrived in, like impaled on the fucking wheel. That was really cool.
That was good.
Really cool.
That was really good. And this is where it's just kind of like he just goes, oh, take her.
Her trance is broken once he's dead.
Yeah. And they're like, take her, go home, da-da-da-da-da. And then they leave through the door, and it's like, the end. It's a universal picture.
Yeah.
and it kind of ends.
That's it.
And I'm interested to see if, you know, this is a trend in all the movie monsters, or it's just kind of just like that one-time thing just because this was the first, so they didn't have like a way to conclusively end it.
I also want to know how it ends in the books. How, you know, or even the play itself would be really nice to find out.
Because the next movie that came out, I know does not follow the books.
Right.
Which is Frankenstein. And I've read Frankenstein. It's not that great of a, you know, they really don't follow it, because like the book is basically, it's the doctor, and then the monster like gains sentience, and then the monster's like, I'm your monster, bitch, and then the monster's like, I'm gonna kill your fiance to get revenge on you, because I have like enough brain power to know what to do with this type of stuff, like how to get back at you.
Yeah.
I know that's not gonna happen, but I'm interested to see, you know, if it happens in Frankenstein, I won't really chalk that up as, oh, this is going to be the formula, just because those two movies came out so close to each other that it makes sense that they maybe have similar endings like that. Once we get to like Wolfman, I'm interested to see how the ending to a Wolfman goes.
Well, that was the movie.
That was the movie.
If you guys can, I really do suggest watching it. If you can find it. I had to find a download for it. And it took fucking forever.
It's not even like hard to watch.
No.
Because like it's a long movie. When you see how long the movie is, you're like, shit.
Yeah.
Wasn't that hard?
No, not at all. There was a few points obviously we talked about. It was up and down. But
that was like probably 10, 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, in total. Do you want to cut and then do the roundup?
I will let you choose.
Nah, fuck it. Let's just keep going, because this is more of a discussion anyways. I really like this movie. I was really, really excited to watch this. I grew up watching a lot of very old horror movies when I was very young, and definitely shouldn't have been doing that. And I never got a chance to see this one. And I was not disappointed. Acting really well done. I felt like I was, you know, watching a very well done theatrical play on film. The lighting blew me away. The writing obviously was good. And honestly, there's not much to say bad about this movie. It's a classic for a reason. It's timeless for a reason. I'd probably give it about...
This is where it's hard. It's the rating. It's hard.
It's fucking hard. I don't think I'll ever give anything a 10 out of 10. I don't think I'll ever do that. Unless...
Well, I already have. We've had 2 10 out of 10s from me so
from
far.
You. I'm going to give
Nightmare on Elm Street and Thanks Killing.
I'm going to give this either an 8.5 or a 9. Because I was very impressed. Very impressed with this
I was
movie.
going to give it a 7.
Okay. I'll go with 8.5.
I think it was... Yeah, I was going to say, the reason I'm going 7 is because it's good. And I think, you know, if it was supposed to be its impact, 10 out of 10. If it's like its impact on horror, it's 10 out of 10.
No doubt.
And you can't
I
fight
see
that.
why
Like,
it's so influential on horror and film in general.
Just any of the original movie monsters.
Yes.
So Wolfman, Mummy, like they're 10 out of 10s in the sense of how much influence they have had on the genre.
And I fucking get it.
Just like
it's not all
say,
hype. It's not all hype.
Yeah. Just like you could say Scream was a 10 out of 10 on influence because it literally created what was going to be the next 20 years until Insidious would come around and start changing things up, or Saw, or, you know, just it set a trend to go. Now, the one thing that's impressive is eventually the Scream trend ended, the Saw trend ended. These trends never ended, and instead, like, transcended horror and went into other movies in the way that things are presented or the way things are shot, you know?
It changed the game forever, for sure.
I think for my enjoyment, it's a 7 because the slow points were just really fucking slow in a slog to get through. But its impact is a 10. Uh-huh. And I will not fight that. Also, I just want to note, because it has one of my favorite words ever in it. In 2000, it was preserved. the Library of Congress for culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant reasons, and I just love the word aesthetic.
Fuck yeah.
But this was a really good movie. It's that thing of once you leave once you leave the shit that was Hellraiser, and then you go to whatever the fuck Jennifer's Body was, that Disney Channel movie called Jennifer's Body. You can maybe get a little jaded, or you can get like a little cynical and be like, oh, well, this movie was only good because these other movies were complete garbo. No, this movie was just actually good.
This is really fucking good. And if you haven't seen this and you're really hesitant because it's an old black and white film, please don't do that. Please give this a chance and go with it. It's
even if you skip over the slow parts. Like if you go, this is too slow for me, I'm going to skip forward a minute.
Yeah.
That's fine, because you're probably not going to miss much in that one.
I think
if it's really that slow.
You're going to be very pleasantly surprised if that's what you're going in with, that attitude. And give it a shot. It's really enjoyable.
Now, next week, so I'm going to put it out there. Or not next week, next episode, whenever we fucking decide to record it.
Yeah, see, we're in charge here.
Oh, we missed that. The fucking transatlantic accent.
Oh,
Jesus.
I loved the transatlantic accent.
Oh man, it was. I while we were watching the movie, I literally read the definition of why it was significant. I was like, oh, so it's not actually an accent. It's basically some people being like, I want to talk funny because I can sound richer and more.
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
And that was all it was. It wasn't even a real accent.
No.
It was like a taught fake one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next episode we were supposed to do was The Lost Boys.
Don't tell me we're not doing that movie.
But Cocaine Bear.
Okay, can we do Cocaine Bear and then The Lost Boys?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just really want to do Cocaine Bear.
Okay, because I want to see Lost Boys finally. I
want to do
it.
Lost Boys too, but I'm just like, Cocaine Bear is there waiting for us.
Okay, fair.
Movie in a haunt. There are certain movies that have come out throughout time that were like, is made for a movie in a haunt episode. Cocaine Bear checks every fucking box. It has weird monster. Weird fucking plot. It's Thanksgiving, but probably good.
I was literally about to say that. I'm really excited for that. Okay, so unbeknownst to me, we're doing Cocaine Bear when we come back.
And then we'll do Lost Boys.
Yeah, and then
we may do a side tangent, depending on how risky we feel.
Right.
So Paige and I have had a hard-on for this new Evil Dead movie about to come out.
Or it's out. It's out by the time this comes out.
Oh yeah, it just came out yesterday on our end. We don't know exactly when we're gonna fit that in, but considering how bad we both want to see it, and we're gonna want to do first reactions, I think that may follow Lost Boys. What we could probably do, actually, you know what? I'll keep that a secret.
Okay, we have secrets. But yeah, please, I hope you really like this. Please give this movie a shot. It's a classic for a reason, and it's a breath of fresh air from, modern movies. And you get to see a lot of history and what made movies now. So please give it a shot. You can find us on Spotify, A Movie in a Haunt. You can find us on YouTube, A Movie in a Haunt. And please join us next time for Cocaine Bear. All
right? Join us next time for Cocaine Bear, as I officially broke me.
All right, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.